Imagine a country like that. The population is less than 3 million usually. Everyone cultivates the land and worships the Buddha, live a life of indifference. But over the course of 9 years, thousands of tons of explosives fall on time every day, not a day or two, but 9 years. Every 8 minutes there is a B52 bomber empty the magazine over the head of this country. How much did you throw in total? 2.60 million tons, more than during World War II. The sum of the bombs dropped on the battlefields of Europe and the Pacific. It's spread out over the population. Every man and woman in this country, old people and children, can get nearly a ton of high explosives. It also contained 270 million series bombs so far. January 3rd has not exploded. Hidden in farms and villages, ready to take the next life. Why? A small agricultural country with no formal industry. Why should we bear the burden of human history? Extreme strangulation of fire density. These are not numbers from a documentary. At all, it's hard on the heads of millions of Laotians. Flesh millstone. Welcome back to the world of reorganization. 80 years of national prosperity after World War II. I am Yang Wu, the leader of the capital. Today, let's tear apart the rainforest camouflage of Indochina. Look at Laos. This landlocked country known as Southeast Asia's battery. How to be caught between the great powers. Complete an independent counterattack of Chi and Blood. Act 1. The land of elephants. Laos, homes in China, Vietnam, Cambodia, between Thailand and Myanmar. No outlet at all. In ancient times it was called the land of four wars. In modern times it's called the power buffer. In the history of Laos, it was called the fall of Lan Song, that translates to the country of a million elephants. Sounds domineering, but by the end of the 19th century, this elephant was put in chains by the French. The French occupied Laos. It's not a picture at all. How much does he repeat? Purely for their colony in Vietnam, build a wall to keep out the British. For the French, Laos is just a windbreak. So the French ruled Laos for half a century. How many kilometers of asphalt were built? Almost zero. How many universities were built? One. Without by 1940, there are fewer than a few hundred French bureaucrats in all of Laos. By collecting opium taxes and recruiting strong men ruling over millions of Laotians, the Laotians tolerated it because they believe in Buddhism. Pay attention to the cycle of cause and effect. Mild personality, but that doesn't mean they don't have a backbone. History is cold, but human nature is the same. Where is the oppression? Where there must be the seeds of resistance brewing. In 1945, the Japanese called rub the French on the ground. Then the Japanese surrendered. There was a power vacuum. The aristocrats of Laos saw an opportunity. Prince Petsala stepped forward. Kill founded Laos. Isala free Laos. Declare the independence of Laos. You think this is it? The cruelty of the great power game lies in his son is not qualified to overturn the chessboard himself. In 1946, the rested French drove a warship. He came back with a machine gun. The newly established Free Lao government. We don't have a decent army. It was broken up. The core members can only be exiled in Thailand. This time inside the Lao royal family, a Hollywood blockbuster. Three brothers parted ways. The eldest brother, King Pekala Chin, was disheartened. Second brother, Suafana consort. The king of Chin was a realist. He thinks Laos is too weak. Only balance can be struck among the great powers. Be a quirk. But the third prince, Safarmban, is a hard nut. The prince, who studied in France, I have seen through the hypocrisy of imperialism. He ran off into the jungles of Vietnam, found Ho Chi Minh. He decided that there was no trade-off for independence. Power comes from the barrel of a gun. He personally founded the left-wing resistance in Laos, Patlio Lao Patriotic Front. This is the independent coastline of Laos. Why would a royal aristocrat take off his suit, put on straw sandals, drill into the poisonous rainforest to fight guerrillas? Because he understands bloodless independence is always just talk on paper. By 1954, neighboring Vietnam in the Battle of the Electric Bat beat up the French. The French finally couldn't take it anymore. Signed at the Geneva Conference, officially recognized Laos' independence of Vietnam and Cambodia. Laos is finally free. Don't rush to send away an aging European wolf. And there was one outside the door. Red-eyed bald eagle. The second act is easy for God. It's rare to send a god. Domino time has come to the 1960s. The ironwood of the Cold War has completely fallen in the eyes of Americans. Laos is not a sovereign state at all. It's a domino that's ready to fall. Politicians in Washington have the baton. Draw a circle on the map. If Vietnam is red, Laos will be red. Laos one red. Thailand, Malaysia, even the whole of Southeast Asia will be red. And so Laos had to be controlled But the Geneva Accords stipulated that Laos was a neutral country, no foreign troops can enter. What should I do? The CIA is gone. They have achieved something on a scale unprecedented in human history. Dark secret war. The CIA has no regular army, but with a lot of dollars and weapons into the mountains and forests of northern Laos, they found the local Hmong. They take advantage of ethnic conflicts armed with a King's special guerrillas led by General Bao. This army is armed with American M16 rifles holding a military sound from the CIA. Go to Batlio led by King Phana Phong Chin on the same land. Laotians beat Laotians. Standing behind is Washington, Moscow, and northern Laos completely reduced to the crawler of the meat grinder of two camps. We're going to have paradoxical approaches. Let's look at this history. This is both a sad song for Laos seeking independence. It is also an inevitable product of the Cold War between great powers. Handle it with my member. I want to tell you 3. The hardcore insider that even Hollywood dare not shoot casually. The first U.S. intelligence agency, it was actually in Laos, founded a leather bag airline company. The company's core business, it is the poison of the Golden Triangle that is sold all over the world, transporting heroin using drug money to support mercenaries in Laos. The second is deep in the mountains of northern Laos. The CIA fabricated a building with 40,000 population airport runway, a city that makes hundreds of flights a day, but on all the world maps at the time this place called Dragon Town doesn't exist. It's a ghost city through and through. And the third is something that completely flips perception. Over the pristine jungles of Laos, China and the United States actually broke out tacit secret confrontation. The United States will not admit to the bomb dropped in Laos, China, also externally strictly confidential. The hundreds of thousands of air defenses dispatched and engineering units. The two sides are near the 20th parallel north latitude. The real knife and real gun have been fighting for a few years, shot down by Chinese anti-aircraft artillery. Hundreds of U.S. fighter jets were damaged, but this was in the international news of the year. I can't even find a word between these two great powers. See through the iron-blooded case battle what kind of geopolitical calculation is hidden because of the review scale and duration. And you can only click on them so far in the public version. If you haven't seen the addiction, click to enter the homepage to join the membership. Let's go somewhere else. Shocking, this period of human history, exciting secret war completely ate upside down. Act 3. Death, rainstorm, and scarlet dawn. The real purgatory falls from the sky as the Vietnam War escalated. North Vietnam, to deliver supplies to the guerrillas in the south, opened up a crossing the hidden mountains of eastern Laos. This is the famous Ho Chi Minh Trail. To cut off this aorta, U.S. Air Force began a 9-year bombing frenzy. The scene cuts to the sky over eastern Laos. You can't hear the birds. All you could hear was the roar of B52 engines. Like the sharpening sound of death, thousands of tons of bombs rained like a rainstorm pouring outside Chanshan Mountain. The virgin forest was burned to the ground. The mountain was flattened. The river was blown up. The number of bombs dropped by the Americans' peonies explode in the air. Hundreds of bomblets, the size of tennis balls, are scattered all over the ground. This bomb is not designed to blow up bridges. He does it to kill living forces, to blow up people's hands and feet. Facing such a steel storm, how did the guerrillas in Batlio do it? They didn't surrender. Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians retreat to San Road in northeastern Laos, burrowed into hundreds of natural caves. In a dark cave, they built hospitals, school, arsenal. There's even a small printing press. The bomb outside took the mountain off again and again. The man in the hole, by the light of the kerosene lamp, keep going. Meeting to plan the great cause of nation building. What is independence? This is called independence, not a suit and tie. Sign at the negotiating table, but in the rubble of 2 million tons of explosives. The right to survive. In 1973, Americans were mired in the quagmire of the Vietnam War. Domestic anti-war wave finally confessed. The Paris Peace Accords are signed. American soldiers dismally withdrew from the Indochina Peninsula. CIA weaned another Laotian government and among special forces. It fell apart immediately. In 1975 is a year engraved on historical coordinates. This year Saigon was breached by North Vietnamese tanks. Phnom Penh was occupied by the Khmer Rouge, while in Laos Batlio's army didn't encounter any decent resistance. Peace marched into the capital, Vientiane. No massive bloodshed, only the dreary rise of the wheels of history. King Sisavangwadana of Laos announced his abdication. Hand over the ship that symbolizes royal power. Lansong's subjugation lasted for more than 600 years. completely become history. December 2nd, 1975, the Lao People's Democratic Republic is officially established. Suphanuon, the Red Prince, who has been in the jungle for 30 years, finally became head of state. This scarred little country, it took 30 years. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed and injured past the guns of the French, and American bombs finally took their fate into their own hands. The fourth act, the train of destiny, is now. If you travel to Laos in Shurgang Plain, Sichuan mining province, you can still see craters big and small. The local people, even with bomb casings from under the heads of Americans made into a flower pot, sinks. And even the weight of the house. This is the philosophy of the Lao people. Suffering cannot be avoided, then put the suffering under your feet. Go on living. Did you think the story would end here? Nope. Fate in the field still tests Laos, as a landlocked country, how to develop, being locked in the mountains. Until a few years ago, they waited for a new east wind. This time it wasn't a bomb falling from the sky, but a steel dragon roaring from the north face. The entire China-Laos railway is open to traffic. This one is over 1,000 kilometers long. Bridge-tunnel ratio is extremely high. Standard railway lock Laos directly from one road, forcibly split into a road country. The muddy material lines on the Ho Chi Minh Trail became speed 160 kilometers of Fusheng EMU. This is more than just a railway. This is Chinese power reshaping the geopolitical pattern of Southeast Asia. It is the Chinese civilization that wants to be rich, the Eastern wisdom of building the road first to a land ravaged by Western bombs, bringing real information increment and hope for survival. The next issue is about the independence of Laos. It's a long jungle forbearance than his neighbor, the ancient land of Angkor. What they went through, an even more stifling blood shuffle of information. The next issue of World Reorganization will bring you to Cambodia's independence.